you can go to launch really quickly. You just need to make sure you can do it, you can execute it. So the barrier to entry has decreased for this kind of passionate people, non-developers who can try out their ideas without begging for help from some other people. So it really reduced the cost, and I think they will see the value in it, and maybe.
I'm here with Sam Mussie. Sam, thank you for being on the podcast.
Thank you for having me.
This is great. So you are with Mereb Technologies.
Yeah, Mereb
What
Technologies.
what is Mereb? What is Mereb Technologies? What do you guys do?
So yeah, we here at Mereb Technologies, we are a software development outsourcing company. Mainly, we do software outsourcing. We export talents to companies in the US as well as Europe, and we do all other business process outsourcing as well, like customer service, customer support, and maintenance as well. And our clients are mainly based in Europe and in US, and we collaborate and partner with other software companies as well as outsourcing companies who want to find high quality tech individual software developers and work with them here in our main office in Addis Ababa. So we work a lot of with companies that need their legacy code improved. So we do a lot of modernization, software improvement, and creating new platforms from existing ones, as well as building building softwares or SaaS from scratch for tech startups and other tech companies. So that's mainly what we do.
And you're based in Addis.
Yes, in Addis Ababa, Ethiopia.
Right. So you outsource talent, so individual developers, and also end-to-end projects you take on from other companies, right?
Yeah, so yeah, our I think our main source or our biggest is we do export software talent. So individual developers are integrated as part of other larger teams who work as engineers and who report to these companies directly. And we do the management side from for them, so that they can focus on building building the software with great developers. And another thing we do is we do end to end for other tech companies as well. So we have our own project managers and software development teams, and we interact directly with the clients so that they can only give us their requirements, and we worry about the software solution ourselves. So we've been successful in both areas, but yeah, mainly because we work with software companies. They want to micromanage developers. So we give them the opportunity to do that. And here in Ethiopia, because it's really a emerging technology here, so the software space is blowing up in the recent 5 years. So there are a lot of hungry and talented developers who are ready to prove themselves to international clients.
Yeah, it really feels like the last 5 years. So I was last in Ethiopia in 2019. We wrote a strategy for the Ministry of Innovation and Technology
Yeah.
back just when Abiy Ahmed got to office. He came from that ministry before, right? And we went around from door to door looking for ITO, BPO companies, and there weren't that many. So also there was, the telecommunication infrastructure wasn't as reliable, and so a lot happened there. So this boom that you speak of, I mean, I've met a bunch of companies now. It's really, Addis has really come on the map in these recent years. Tell me about that maybe a little bit. What is this ecosystem like?
Yeah. So Now there are a lot of huge tech companies, but me, when I was graduating, I started working when I was in school, but it was really hard to find like internships or companies that work with software directly. So initially, and this is gonna be really funny, I applied to Ministry of Innovation and Technology because it was almost one of the only ones that was accepting internships for software engineers. So
Really?
I did get accepted there, but I didn't actually go because one of my teachers and my department's dean uh, gave me an opportunity to work for him as a project that he contracted from the government. So there were a few individual talented software engineers who are also our teachers and colleagues on the universities who used to work, but they were far and few between. So there wasn't really much of an opportunity. But I think in the early 2019 and 2020, when COVID hit, a lot of remote jobs really started coming and started flowing in. So there was a really huge opportunity for freelancers. So in my opinion, I think that the freelancing space really came with COVID as well as just opening the market, the Ethiopian developers into international markets, and a lot of jobs started coming and flowing from there. So even me and my partners here in Mereb Technology, we started as freelancers. We didn't start the company until like 3 or 4 years later, freelancing and making it organized and making sure. So we were working from home and finding international clients through these freelancing websites like freelancer.com and Upwork. So that's really how it blew up. But uh, it immediately caused the boom because there were a lot of jobs done back then, and as well as we were proving that it can be a viable job. So you don't need to get hired by a tech company here, even if they existed, but they didn't exist. And you can make a living and really export our skills here. So that I think caused a lot of boom. And at the same time, international companies were coming in and joining the space, as well as some local companies started working, collaborating. Especially banks were huge software customers. So some small startups came and started working with banks to create mobile apps, websites for them. So mainly, yeah, the customer was the government, the banks, the huge companies, but the international space was opened due to a combination of multiple stuff. So, and because the international companies were flowing in here, and they needed to hire talent, so they came to universities, and I was also hired by a company called Made Innovations. It's an Italian company who came and created a local branch here to develop softwares for them, in-house CRMs and stuff like that. So that kind of opportunities also started coming in. And that showed an example here to the companies in Ethiopia that they can do software export and create a market to import foreign currency, which was highly needed back then. So a lot of investment from private sector as well as some focus from the government really helped. So I think it's a combination of these things.
Yeah. And I mean, it was bound to happen with the size of your country and the demographic and also the level of education that you have in Addis Ababa. Uh, it's just something that is besides the negative parts, right? The war going on, there's also that other side of Ethiopia that's so beautiful in the way it's booming and in the way it's coming up. So it's interesting that at the same time as, you have the global media rightfully, focusing on the difficulties in the country, you have this widely unseen sector that all of a sudden comes up that is existing now in Addis that even as far back as early as 2019, which is not long ago, to that extent did not exist. That's for me, it's a fascinating trajectory, a fascinating speed of this change that's happening in Addis. So you guys are right next to the airport, you said?
Yeah, we're already, I think, like 10-minute walk from the airport. So it should be like 2, 3 minutes via car. It's less than a kilometer long from the airport. So really close to the airport.
Right. So we should hear some planes go above during this podcast.
Sure. Yeah, we're to the side of the streets, so to the side of the main streets. So probably not. They use behind the airport is like an open field because they anticipated it. But yeah, of course, the way the city is growing is not gonna be an open field for long because really expanding really quickly.
So we're trying to find out what AI is doing to services export sectors. So if you're exporting services, it's great because you're bringing hard currency into the country, you're bringing money into the country, growing the economy. These global value chains of providing services to global markets. How do you see that changing with AI? How do you think this is going to evolve? How have you seen it change already with generative AI taking on some tasks, but also maybe not being so reliable? Can you walk me through what your experience has been with this?
Yeah, so yeah, I think the generative AI stuff has been really revolutionary for the sector, for the whole like the IT sector, and it's taking away some of the market and is creating a vast, huge market on it because now everyone wants to do AI related stuff, so they want to build stuff. And the good thing is these generative AIs are helping non-coders create a lot of these skill deficiency to augment it. So someone who doesn't have a background in software development will definitely go and try to create a product by themselves, which is really great and creates an interest in the sector and creates more market share. But and on the other hand, there are a lot of companies who want to try and prototype really quickly regarding these AI tools so that they can integrate them into their platforms, into their services, or to create them as assistants for their workflow. So a a domain expert wants to wants to integrate their work into a service or a platform that they have, and it's now much easier than ever to integrate it because generative AIs are experts in a lot of things, in almost everything, especially related to like high knowledge stuff, like for low stuff, for writing, and for software development for coding. You can actually give some tasks to the AI and it will give you a not so bad result. So that has been a lot of my experience seeing a lot of companies try to integrate these generative AIs into their systems, and they want highly skilled developers to do it. So I think it created a lot of markets and it took away. I think that's what I'm seeing now. And since they're not really is they're in their infancy level, because these generative AIs are not reliable, you cannot give them to a doctor and tell him to or her to create a diagnosis with it and trust it blindly, because we don't know how accurate their result is. And the generative AIs, they predict tokens, like that they predict what should come next, and they don't really have a way to fact check themselves or to create to make sure they are right, because they're a bit of speculative in my opinion. So it's not really because the human aspect is still needed in all sectors, especially in software development. So, but what we can do now is we can allow our developers to use these tools, these generative AI tools, to speed up their work as well as to make sure they can deliver high quality stuff with them. But if there is no human supervision and there is no a bit of experience on what is generating and reviewing it, it causes a lot of problems for the clients that use this software as well as for the companies that are creating it. So it's kind of a double-edged sword.
How many people do you guys have at Mereb?
Yeah, currently we're about close to 40 people and we're really expanding really quickly. So in the coming couple of weeks, we're going to be close to 60 people when we're trying to, yeah, we're trying to expand really quickly.
And that's mainly software developers, or which direction you're expanding in?
Yeah, we're expanding with software developers as well, and we do have customer service agents as well as sales teams, so SDRs, business development people. We're also expanding in that area because we're seeing an uptick in the needs of these services.
So if you give me like a pie chart of your revenue of like where are your clients, like how many of them are local and how much of your business is international?
Yeah, I would say close to 100% of our business is international. So
Oh, okay.
we haven't been able to, yeah, we do work collaborate our with local partners, but it's really not a huge percentage. So 99.9 would be markets in the US and Europe and in the Middle East as well. But we do also build our in-house products that we can use to increase our workflow, as well as we have partner companies, sister companies that need services like that. So we usually create these softwares like we are building it for ourselves, so in-house. So we don't really accept that kind of payments. So mainly it's international market.
And the sectors? Like,
Mm, yeah, for the sectors, I think our biggest clients are in the iGaming sector, so online games and stuff like that, and we that's the biggest sector we've worked on. We have a long-term partner that we've worked with for a really long time. So,
so what do
and
you do there? What do you do in online gaming? What's the tasks that your crews are working on?
yeah, so we do manage the platform, the software as a service platform for online iGaming, and it has a really complex administrative backend. So a lot of reports, transactions, as well as because it's kind of yeah, it's a gaming platform, but the main work on it is transactions because people play and win real money. So what we do is work with this and make sure the transactions are correct. We are supporting a lot of users and checking for fraud and stuff like that. So I think yeah, our backend is heavy with maybe yeah, they're also a financial analysts as well. But yeah, they're software developers, but they got that experience because it's really yeah, the gaming space, especially real money gaming space, has a lot of transactions. I think much more than small banks or loan companies because there are a lot of transactions happening between thousands or tens of thousands users.
So your clients are mostly international, abroad,
Yeah,
but you mentioned last time to me, I mean, you guys have this phenomenal podcast set up. That's all in Amharic. So
yeah,
that's obviously not tailored to your clients. You're not doing that as something as kind of marketing or something. You're doing that for the local ecosystem. Like so Yared and Nebu are interviewing people from the local ecosystem. Can you tell me about that a little bit? Because that's also very like you told me last time the podcast is almost better, more known than the company in
yeah.
the ecosystem.
Exactly, yeah. So yeah, that's a bit of paradoxical, but it the podcast has a different goal than I guess you wouldn't call it a different goal. It's really similar goal, but we want to work on our we want to work locally as well, and we want to create partners, and we want to create a lot of a huge talent pool that we can export. So for because we want to network with other tech companies and also encourage them to work in the outsourcing space, and it's a great way to market ourselves to the local space because For the short term, it may not really help us get jobs from international clients, but making us a pioneer or a front runner in the local ecosystem means when anyone comes to check for software outsourcing in Ethiopia, which we plan to make an outsourcing destination here and making it known internationally, we want to have a huge ecosystem here where we don't fail on the first try. So imagine like a huge international company came into Ethiopia and wants 1,000 software developers or software engineers, and we're not able to procure it or to collect it from the local market. It's gonna be really hard. So initially, yeah, the podcast was built to make sure we network with our local partners, we work with them, we collaborate with them, and create an ecosystem here and create events so that people can come and see and do what we're doing. So the main goal is just to create more competitors because the space is still a new space for Ethiopia, and because we want to make sure that Ethiopia is known as an outsourcing destination. So if you ask a person from Romania which country is an outsourcing destination, he would say maybe Romania itself or India or Philippines, and they won't call a single African country. And what we can do is we can try to break out from here instead of bringing the clients or the customers from the other parts of the world and see that we are lacking in many spaces. So the plan is a bit long term, but I think if you don't plan like that, you won't be successful, and we won't put Ethiopia into the map. So that's our goal here.
Yeah, definitely. That sounds like a good strategy. I mean, we were just on the call before with Jos from Caleb's Mereb Tech,
Yeah.
and then we were planning on doing the roadshow together, which last minute didn't work out. But we were there with Dereje from MMCY, and Wanda Zanawi was on your no, Wanda Zaudi was on your podcast also recently, right?
Yeah, he's
Uh,
the president of the Ethiopian Outsourcing Association,
right.
which we are a member of and trying to increase it really rapidly. We're about only 19 companies, member companies so far, so it's really like it's in its infancy period.
In the past, and I still hear this sometimes from people who aren't in the industry and industry players. In the past, it would surprise me when companies in a local ecosystem in the global business services outsourcing, whatever, be it BPO or ITO, when they would actually closely collaborate and help each other out. Also help investors out. If an investor wants to come into this ecosystem just to pretty much roll out the red carpet and say, "Hey, I'll show you around." We are anything but competitors. I mean, we're gonna come here and we'll show you around. I'll show you the empty office spaces that you could use, and I'll show you the pros and cons. It's really interesting to see how these ecosystems, people working inside the industry intrinsically know that this collaboration has to happen, that there's so much more white space on the map than is potential for direct head-to-head competition where you might take away clients from each other.
Yeah, I think yeah, that's the main point. There is in the real world there is really because the market is huge, the market is international. There is a small chance of going head on with another software outsourcing company. I think surprisingly early this week we had last week I think yeah last week we had a seminar for Ethiopian local companies here to explore outsourcing. So yeah, the main point was why outsourcing? Why would you need to try outsourcing? And a lot of outsourcing companies also were invited and showed up, came, and Mr. Wonderson was one of the ones that showed up, as well as Mr. Malaku, the country director for Accelerant Solutions, which is one of the biggest outsourcing companies as well here. And they were talking because we didn't have the expertise. We were able to contact them and make introduction with a potential client so that they can work on it. So it's really an open space because if you don't have the expertise, you don't accept the job and fail. You make sure other companies can succeed. So you make the introduction and try to work together because I think the market is really huge because it's still, and now it's getting bigger because of AI, in my opinion. So there is really a chance to collaborate and work with. So at Mereb Technologies, our doors are always open. We invite people, other CEOs or software developers who want to start this kind of work, and we give tours almost like once a month or once every 2 months and show them our processes, how we do business development, how we manage our projects, how we talk to clients, how our developers talk to clients, how they manage their workflows and stuff like that. So it's really an open space, especially in Ethiopia. It's really a young market, so we need competitors to push us forward as well. And also, if Ethiopia is going to be known as an outsourcing destination, and it can be just Mereb Technologies alone here, because it's not really it doesn't work like that. There must be options. There must be 100, 200 companies that are able to compete and provide developers. So I think the main point is just making sure that our country, Ethiopia, has a place in the international stage for outsourcing and software development, because there are a lot of young, talented people emerging from these universities and schools.
How is the scene, the tech scene? Do you guys have hackathons or do you guys have get-togethers where you know each other, where you meet each other, where you meet the same people? And the reason I'm asking this is because I read a book recently about Silicon Valley by a German author recently. It was 2016. So read it about 10 years ago. But anyway, it stuck with me that he said that in Silicon Valley, it's an interesting thing that when you are there physically, one line in the book was that even San Francisco is too far away. When you're close in Palo Alto, when you're with each other, when you're near each other, it's so weird that these guys are developing all the digital products, yet when they're physically close to each other, they share knowledge with each other. They share secrets because they're not really secrets. They just like to talk to, nerd out with each other, talk about the things that they're coming up with, right? That there's a kind of a collegial space that is physical, that there's something to that. And that's something that I'm hopeful for a bustling city like Addis, for that to grow and to grow organically with all the young people you have come into this sector.
Yeah, yeah. Unfortunately, I'm not really a participant since I've been at Mereb Technologies. It's been a stretch to get the products out, to fix them and stuff like that. So it's not. I would like to participate more. And I remember in my university days, I've been to a lot of hackathons because the schools, as well as I think the US Embassy was, and GDG, Google Developers Group, used to prepare almost, every quarter or every 6 months. They used to prepare hackathons, and I used to participate. And it's been always my goal to bring it here. We haven't had the chance to do it yet. It's been like 4 or 5 years since we've been working on the company, and still other priorities come up. But yeah, we try to do LinkedIn posts and do challenges, like remote challenges. For example, we had a design competition just a few months ago, a couple of months ago, where we sent challenges to students and people who are maybe in their internship phase to create design challenges. And we brought and interview the winner here on the podcast. So that was really interesting, and we're always planning and pushing it. But yeah, but the good news is there are always other companies that do it. I think ALX is one of the companies that always prepares events like this and hackathons. I've been invited to a couple as well. And yeah, so there are chances to do it, and we're trying to improve and yeah, to create more free time, create seminars, create events, create hackathons, as well as opening our doors who want to come and talk to us, because we're really open to talk to them. And people always come to the office and see, I wanted to talk to Sam, or I wanted to talk to Naba, because we have an open invitation. We've been sending through the YouTube channel, through the LinkedIn, and people come and talk to us. Yeah, mostly there are students that come and want to learn, which we really enjoy, and we have a strong internship program. We have I think 5, 10 interns at any given moment, and we have a really great pipeline where we hire uh, almost, I think, more than half our interns, so that they can participate in projects and they can start work with us, and they can explore the market here, because the market is really emerging, and there are a lot of new companies working here. Yeah, even yeah, last yeah, on Saturday during the seminar, a person who started here, who was an intern at Mereb Technologies, who has started a software outsourcing company and have like 2, 3 developers under him, and was working. So really exciting to see that, because uh, the journey was from Mereb Technologies, and we're trying to expand the space. So it's really exciting to see.
Yeah, maybe I could plug this quick here. I mentioned to you we're doing a hackathon at the end of September at ALX, connected with CCI's Elevate Africa. So we'll be posting that soon. So that'll be a lot of fun. Hey, you mentioned two things. One is you said the space for work or the sector is going to grow with AI. That's your take.
Yeah.
And empirically, practically, you are expanding by quite a number. If you're expanding from 40 to 60, that's a lot. Um, how do you square that with the literature out there, leaders of the big labs saying in a year everything will be automated away, AI will be doing everything? Where do humans fit into that picture?
Yeah. I think it took away some of the jobs already, I think, and it took a lot of the junior developers' jobs,
You
because
saw that already in Ethiopia. You're seeing that in your own ecosystem.
maybe not definitely in Ethiopia, but because I think the amount of senior developers is not really huge, and we need a lot of junior developers to come through the pipeline and gain experience. But I'm seeing with the companies we collaborate with, and people that work on international companies as freelancers or remote employees, we are seeing that they're reducing their workload. They're reducing their like junior developers to increase the workload into senior developers, and tell them to work with the help of AI, or they're forcing the junior developers to rushing them and trying to make them work with really complex tasks, because now they have access to AI and they can build it. And that's really two main problems I see, is that the junior developers are not gaining experience and are not getting really skilled. So because of the demand that's put in them, and because the AI tools, the generative AI tools, are not really perfect and are not helping with the quality, they're being dropped, and more work is being assigned into senior developers. But here in Ethiopia, I think the amount of senior developers is not really huge. People with 7 years or 10 years of experience can be, I think, less than 1,000 or in the hundreds. So, but the sector is really huge, because uh, there are basically virtually zero companies that existed 10 years ago that were doing software development. So it's really a young market, and there is a place for all of these new developers, because the young market is creating new companies here. But yeah, internationally, because we work with international clients, I'm definitely seeing preference with senior developers with the help of AI to maybe stretch their timeline and to add workloads for them. So that's really interesting case.
You said you were worried about younger developers not learning the craft, not learning what they need to be learning. But let me challenge you there. Like, what do they need to be learning? I don't know. So my analogy that just comes to mind is we have a bunch of swimmers who are comparatively slow, but now we're giving them surfboards and we're telling them, here, surf. Now, obviously, with a surfboard, you're much faster than if you were swimming. But if you can't swim, once you fall off the surfboard, you're going to drown, right? So if vibe coding is the surfboard, I don't know if this analogy works for you, but like you're doing things much faster. But do we even need to be able to swim, or can we give people floaties? Can we give people like a life jacket, and then they when they fall off their vibe coding surfboard, they can just get back on? I don't know, like how do you square this circle between like obviously every young developer needs to use coding assistant tools to keep up, but do they need to learn the basics, or is that just us old geezers thinking that because that's how it always was in the past? Just can't picture how it would be without that.
Yeah, I think the analogy works perfectly. They're really learning to go from point A to point B really fast with a surfboard, but they really can't swim. And that's a problem because at least they need to float to stay alive. And these generative AI tools are causing a bit of a knowledge gap because uh, they're using it as maybe not as a tool for development. They're using it as their backbone. So if you take away these generative AI tools, they don't know uh, because if you can't explain how the thing that you wrote works, it's gonna be a problem because this feature is going to be pushed into production and used by real people, and because these generative AIs are really just doing like prediction simulation and they're not really perfect. The life jackets are not good right now. They have some little holes that will deflate after some time. So when an issue occurs, they need to see and uh, try to fix it. So a junior developer will be responsible because he was the one that introduced this issue. And when you tell them to fix it, they will try to rely on these AI tools. And these generative AI tools are good to bootstrap to create prototypes really quickly. But in the real world, when the code base is large or when the business logic is really a specific specialized industry, they are not really helpful to like capture that business logic because if the generative AI hasn't seen it before in its training data or in during its reinforcement learning or at some point, it's going to be hard to predict it because these tools are not really creating something new or something novel. They're combining the information and seeing what's likely to come because they've seen it in their training data before. So we're really getting close to making them good for software development because especially for software development is a much easier task to train these generative AIs instead of other, for example, the creative industry, because we have really structured rules. We can run the code and we can make sure the test pass and we can see which commit introduced which feature and we can create a lot of training data for it because there are a lot of projects, open source projects. And now because almost everyone is using these generative AIs, they're definitely using them to make them better, to train them with the use. And I think they've been utilized the most with software development and software engineering. So they're gonna get better. But at this point, I think the life jackets won't hold. So that's my opinion.
So I'm not a developer. I'm a writer, I'm a researcher. So for me, my field is writing articles, writing pieces. And of course, I have to write in other areas too. So if you can draw the parallel for me to understand what it is that you're seeing, what's the value that AI is bringing. So the value for me is in emails and in internal reports, proposals also, like first drafts of proposals, whereas sometimes even there I'm feeling like a proposal, if I want to win it, I need to write it well. And in the end, I feel like who's assisting whom? Because I feel like sometimes I'm the editor of a babbling AI and I need to be cutting down. I might as well write this from scratch. I'm still 2.5 years into this, really trying to use AI every day. I'm still many times wondering, should I have used AI for this or should I have just done it the old way? Because the old way is somehow cleaner. It doesn't bring in the babble. And then so for a final draft of something that I wrote, I need to either use AI and massively rewrite it, which is also hard. If you rewrite a junior person's stuff, it's just you might as well have written it yourself, or write it myself without AI, and then later have the AI maybe go over a sentence or something and say, "Hey, I'm not happy with this sentence. What different words, like almost like a thesaurus for paragraphs, right? Not for in the individual words, where you're looking up what's a synonym for this, and can you help me with that? That's where it really helps, like a better Grammarly kind of thing. Well, actually, Grammarly uses AI for doing that actually already pretty good. Um, how is that process? I mean, there's recently came a study came out recently that you may have seen. A lot of people are citing it. It's a study about how if people use AI for writing essays, they are much less likely to remember what they wrote, which when I saw that, I thought, duh, obviously.
Yeah.
Uh, Well, and they're much less likely. They didn't internalize it, the thing they wrote or the AI wrote for them if they later then even edited it. So in order to use writing as a thinking tool, to kind of tattoo the ideas into your brain, to develop the ideas as you're writing. I don't know if you have that as a developer when you're sitting at your keyboard and your fingers are hovering over your keyboard and you're actually creating something that's really hard to do, but you couldn't do that passively by reading someone else's stuff. You have to actually do it in order to get good at it, like riding a bike, maybe. Is that process similar? I'm trying to draw this parallel between writing and coding and developing something.
Yeah, I think the good news is the coding space is much better than writing because writing requires some creativity and creating novel stuff. And the large language models currently maybe lack a bit of that creative imagination to do that. So if you read something written by an AI, you would see immediately like it's not written by a human. It's getting better now because if you give it a bit of an instruction and you nudge it a bit, you can fool a human, but you can still see the patterns, the words that are used, the incoherent babbling, like 5 paragraphs of saying nothing.
Yeah. I
Yeah,
get angry. I mean, when I read an article, I get duped into reading someone's article and they pretend it's theirs. And I see this is Claude 4 or this is Claude 3.7 that wrote this with the bullet points and saying the same stuff over and over again in slightly different words without having said anything, ever have made an original point. I recently read an article like that and I just got angry. I just thought, why'd you make me read that? Like, that's nothing. There's nothing there, right?
yeah. But for code, it's slightly better. So it's not in that level, but yeah, it generates a really nice especially for tasks that are trivial or the code base is not huge or you're starting from scratch. It really writes the boilerplate for you. So it bootstraps a lot of stuff for you and it can write tests for you. And you just have to be careful what it generates is useful. So yeah, I think I was using Cursor yesterday and I wanted to write unit tests. So because this is really inconsequential because I have the code base already that's functional, that has been tested by QA engineers, and to make it more robust so that I can give it to junior developers, and when they mess up, the unit test can capture it and notify them, you've done something wrong, you need to fix it. So yeah, it should be a trivial task. Let me give it to an AI. So it wrote a really nice unit test. I saw the checks, the asserts. So make sure this value is here, make sure this value is not this, and it created that, and I ran the test. It's really nice, it passed. So it's covering a lot of the code, but let me go back and check it because I didn't trust it. And I see like there is a for loop there that doesn't do anything. Like it doesn't, it slows down the system and it's not adding anything to the test. So why was this included? If a junior developer just sees it works, commits it, and someone senior reviews it and asks them why did you add this, and they're not able to explain it because it's not useful. It's something the AI added because it likes bubbling in the code as well as the writing. So it's useful, but you need to see and review each and every line it produces, because for now it might be benign. It doesn't really hurt the system. Maybe just run it a few microseconds slower, but the next time it could be leaking some data, or it might be creating a vulnerability. So because they're really useful and they're creating a lot of positive value with the software development, junior developers are less likely to like investigate every single token generated by these models, and they're not able to review them, and they're trusting them blindly, and that causes, because each company's business logic is really unique, and sometimes some companies have similar business logic, some similar flows, and the AI might interpret it differently and create a close enough copy of that functionality. But unless real users use it and they see something is missing, or the developer catches it, or the QA engineer catches it with extensive testing, which also requires a lot of resources and time, it's not able to like, you're not able to detect them in time, and it can cause more problems than it caused. So I think we are at the cusp of making these things useful, especially with now we are moving into agentic models that can do things by themselves and check by themselves and improve things by themselves. But it will save the things that I have to look for in the code, but it doesn't make me trust it because still they don't know anything about themselves. They don't know anything about the thing they generate. They're just a probability machines that just regurgitate and output tokens, which one is likely next, because they have no intention behind them. And if there is no intention, it means it can be a bad intention or a good intention. So it can go either way. And that's really the huge problem I see. And junior developers don't have the experience to see which one is a good one and which one is a bad one.
So that's where my analogy falls, because better swimmers are also better surfers.
Exactly.
So if somebody can swim a little bit, like they can keep themselves above water. I hear about uh for a while now we've been hearing about the biggest tech companies in Silicon Valley not hiring junior developers anymore. Like not hiring people out of like the top companies, the top addresses are not really hiring young people anymore. Now they're even letting some go. How does that square with you sitting in Ethiopia with an average age of, what's the average age of Ethiopia? 18?
Yeah, it's like
Yeah. How does
or
that square with you saying you're optimistic that the sector is growing with AI? You mean the sector in terms of revenue for dudes like yourself who are already senior, Or do you mean for the ecosystem? Like, what are we going to do with the young developers? Or should we even be training more young developers um, to get on that surfboard anyway? Because there's no room for swimmers left, right? Like for slow swimmers anyway.
Yeah, so I think I have 2 points when I say it's growing. One is the international market will grow no matter what, because at this point in time, there has been, I think, the most software being in development now than like 10 minutes ago, a year ago, because barrier to entry has been lowered by these AI tools. And there are a lot of vibe coders and non-technical people who want to create prototypes and MVPs and show that they can work. But when you're trying to scale and trying to maybe create customers of 100,000 people, you're not going to steal vibe code, because the issues, when there are 100,000 people, there are going to be 10 million issues, and there are going to be uh, engineers needed to support that infrastructure. So because the barrier to entry has increased, and the amount of valuable software that's going to be output will be increased as well. So internationally, it's growing. I think, yeah, people may disagree, but I think AI has helped to create more tech companies, more software companies, and more developers than any other tool than before. And the second is when I see it from here, from Ethiopia's perspective, there aren't any, I think, a lot of softwares built in country locally. And but there are like huge manufacturing companies, huge telecom companies, huge banks, and the government is also currently one of the biggest customers for software. So the private sector is still empty. It's gonna grow really quickly because people are seeing what other countries are doing, what other countries are building, and they're gonna need it here. A textile manufacturing company still uses Excel sheets or Word documents still here. And these are the modern ones. Some, for example, for car import companies, car spare parts import companies use paper and pen still here. They don't use computers because the government enforces maybe some type of payment, online payment like cash registers or post machines. Some of them only use that kind of software, but they don't really know what their revenue is, what their sales is, what their forecast is, because they're still using pen and paper. And yeah, digitization is really behind in Ethiopia. And because we need to create the skilled workforce to create these systems. So I think what can be an example for Ethiopia is the local banks all have their own mobile apps, super apps like WeChat that have payment, chat, as well as a bunch of other features. And they're building apps like that, mobile apps like that, and platforms much recently. I think in the past 3 or 4 years, there have been huge improvement in the banking sector. Almost all of them have their own mobile payment that they commissioned and created locally. But I think if you go 7 years ago, you wouldn't find people that can create these kind of applications. So they either has to outsource from China or buy things already ready-made things from other countries, and that really is opening a huge sector, a huge market for the tech companies here. And there are a lot of successful local companies that are working with banks to make sure their customers can see and accept and receive payments. And that has been a really recent development. But for example, when I was really in my junior age and starting as a software engineer, there were some Uber clone companies here, and they were using ready-made applications both from India or Australia or countries like that. and they saw that it was really expensive, one, and two, they don't have the access to create custom features that they want. For example, if you come to Ethiopia, you don't really call on Uber. Uber doesn't exist here, but there are a lot of ride-hailing services companies like that. So most people don't want to wait and see to accept like 4 or 5 minutes to instead of opening via the mobile application, you just go to a parked car. Maybe it has a logo printed on the side, and you can talk to them and I want to go there, and they can just input your phone number and start the service. So 5 or 7 years ago, that wasn't possible because all the apps were not built here. We didn't have the expertise. So we had to start creating them from scratch. And that really, the sector really blew up. So now there are more than 10, 20 ride hailing services that are competing with each other. And the country, the city, especially Addis Ababa, has maybe like 100,000 people that drive cars and that work like ride hailing in their part time. So that kind of boom still here is still yet to happen for the other sectors, for the manufacturing sectors, for the service industries, and for a lot of these other sectors that still work with pen and paper. And we still need to train these junior developers to help create and digitize the country. And I think the government also notices that and has been trying to hatch as many software engineers and developers as possible, and they're focusing on that. And as a private company, we also see that, and we wanna train the next generation because we wanna live on a tech savvy country and a tech forward company, because we don't have to wait 10, 20 years to do small evolutions, because the technologies are available now and we can use them and be successful with them right now.
You mentioned you use Cursor as, is that your go-to coding assistant? You work with Cursor or you work with Windsurf sometimes?
Yeah, so I just installed Cursor a few weeks ago, and I usually don't wanna create, because now I write some code, but I don't really write code from scratch because there are a lot of developers that do that. But yeah, I try to fix issues and do personal projects for myself. So for training, I don't want to use any tool because I want to use the chat interface, go to DeepSeek or OpenAI or Grok and try to talk to it. But I'm still old fashioned and I do a lot of Googling. So I Google and see Stack Overflow and stuff like that. But to make sure that I want to work fast, I use Copilot for auto completion, as well as Windsurf sometimes to maybe bootstrap a project from scratch. So, but yeah, I have like 4 or 5 IDEs installed on my computer because I don't really settle on one thing. I want to try all of them. And I think the most like AI assistant coding tool I used is Windsurf.
Okay. Okay. So Windsurf and Cursor are built on, I think, Claude 3.7 still. And Copilot is obviously the Microsoft um whatever Microsoft does, what it,
Yeah.
ChatGPT 4.1 is
Yeah.
underneath maybe.
Yeah.
Um,
ChatGPT is mainly, yeah.
yeah. Yeah. How do you feel about someone like me coming along and holding a workshop? And please be honest, brutally honest. Someone who doesn't develop themselves. I wonder how this must feel for you. And we use Lovable and Bolt, just no code tools to help people. I thought about this when you were speaking about the localized issues when everybody speaks, and I repeat this all the time, but so people might get tired of this, but when everybody speaks about automating jobs away, I think, well, we will automate the jobs away when when we've gotten rid of all our problems. And I don't see that anytime in the near future, that all the problems in the world are going to be gone. So we need to solve localized problems, right? And not only, not to, I mean, not only the techies are the ones who know problems, right? And who actually could have a creative solution to a problem. So a non-techie being able to build a prototype of something that you could actually show to someone else, uh, other than a sketch on a or a PowerPoint presentation, but you're actually showing uh, a prototype of something, maybe just even a front end that this is what this could look like. I see value in this, but how do you feel about that? Like having non-technical people just vibe code with no intention of ever learning how to learn any programming language, but just using English as the like people who've never touched the water and just want to get straight on a surfboard and plan on never falling off because they wouldn't be able to do anything without the that tool. How do you feel about that whole direction, trajectory for people solving problems with software that's underneath the hood that they've never looked into?
I think that's great. I think the barrier to entry should be lower and lower to create software because we have devices like we have laptops, we have phones, and we need to create our own tools that we can use just for ourselves or for our friends, for our like near circles. And that's been, I think, lacking in the space because when I started programming, I wanted to play games and create games. That's how I went into software development. So I want to create, when I was in high school, I wanted to create my own game, which I picked C++, one of the most difficult ones. So I really tried it and failed and left it until I went to university to learn. And I could have started earlier, like 4 years earlier, and been a better experienced developer now. And there were some tutorials, not a lot of on YouTube, but some documentation you can explore a bit. And it was really hard to enter the scene. And I think it prevented a lot of people. Thankfully, it didn't prevent me into going into programming and learning software engineering, but I think it prevented a lot of people. And now it's much easier to do than ever. And all you need to do is install Windsurf or Cursor and try to create something. And you can even go to lovable. I mentioned Windsurf and Cursor because they have a free tier, and you can try and see if that's for you, arguing with a large language model to create something. And sometimes it could be as simple as just a console app that does some calculation or that prints something. And I think that will help one create more programmers and problem solvers. And for programming, the skill isn't really necessary. Like knowing how to code is really good, and it will help you, especially if other people are going to use your tool or your software. It's going to help you debug it and fix it. But to use it for yourself, you don't really need to be a programmer to create it. And sometimes maybe it's a really great idea, and it's really a thing that helps people with their problem. Then you'll have no choice but to learn how to fix it and how to make it better, or you bring more people that are experienced. So I think it's a win-win for, in my opinion, and it will help create a good balance between the non-programs and programs. And people may even see that how hard it is and not yell at the real programs. So that's also a plus.
Right. So while you were speaking, I thought of this parallel between language barriers coming down, between real language. As I mean, Lex Friedman has this podcast and he interviewed the president of Argentina and the president of Ukraine. And they, together with 11 Labs, worked really hard to make their own voices in different languages. Now that's getting easier the way you see maybe, Will Smith eating noodles 3 years ago, and the video generators are so good at it now that in the next 2 years, maybe I really can't believe it, even as I'm saying it, that I get to be so privileged to see the moment in history just before us where this language barrier falls, where in real time we can have this, next time we meet next year, maybe 3 years, maybe 5 years. I don't know what the trajectory is, but it could be 6 months that you could just speak in Amharic and I could speak in German and it would just be the same and the listeners would hear it in English. Uh, as that is happening to the human languages, and I don't think that's hype. I think that's real because you can see it happening. We have all the tools. We just need to put the puzzle pieces together and make them a bit faster and a bit more reliant, and then it's there.
Definitely.
That
Yeah.
moment where I can go to France and speak with somebody in French, and I don't speak French, or go to China, it's just, or I mean, go to Ethiopia and speak all the languages. That would be so phenomenal. Is that similar to the coding languages, to the programming languages? Is that like when people say English is the new programming language? Can you imagine a moment when you don't need to know Python, or the people are building new languages now like Mojo, or is that still necessary if the AI gets so good to use English as the programming languages? Can you imagine that future?
Yeah, I think English will be the next programming language. Not
Or
just
Amharic, you know?
yeah, any natural language will be the next programming language. But yeah, currently we're heading slowly into that, especially for code. I think the because build me a like F1 app. If you tell the large language model, it can interpret it really in many ways, and it will have some trade-offs, some decisions that it has to decide. So it's a bit complex now. So even if you plan out, what I try to do is for my personal projects, I go to a chat window to ChatGPT or Grok, and I plan out an app from top to bottom and try to ask to find holes in it and try to make sure it has everything according to plan. So it's really a comprehensive plan that I want to give to Windsurf so that it can create it without my interference. And I give that plan a detailed plan to it, and it always messes up because uh, there is now because there is a bit of a skill gap between these tools and the ability to do by themselves without without interruption. So you can still with program with English. So tell it to do this. No, it's not like this. Do it like that, and you can do it, and you can iterate as much as possible and create apps. People have done it already. It's a lot of apps currently that are making a lot of money that have like monthly recurring revenues. People are building like that, but it's not as easy as maybe translating a language, because if you speak something in English and want to translate it to Amharic, there are a few but really constrained ways of translating it, and will end up having the same meaning or similar meaning. For programming with English, you have to have a lot of back and forth because the tools cannot really see your intentions or don't really have the capability now to create full-fledged apps. So I think that's really close, especially with AI agents now running in the background indefinitely. They can try and test and work out what errors, what issues it has, and what features are not implemented. And it can iterate by itself, and it can reduce the amount of guidance I have to give it. But now it's still missing a key point. But I think we're really on the trajectory. So within a year or a couple of years, it would be possible to build applications, like usable applications, with only giving it a initial requirement or an initial specification, and it can iterate, test, and get it ready for feedback. So I now we're not ready, we are here, but I think it's really closer than anyone thinks, I believe.
So what should young people be learning then?
I think programming is still important because uh, if yeah, you can try to build these tools, but with these AI models, but if you don't know what they're doing, there is going to be a weakness, muscle weakness, because we are allowing them to take over our skills, and we are not really practicing our skills. So when we are expecting these AI tools to revolutionize and push the human race into the next level, but we have to improve them. We have to build on top of them. We have to make sure to use these tools and create better things than they can build. And I think that we are not sure what their limitation is currently, because we see the potential, but it could be capped at some point. So we can make sure we can improve these tools and we can build on top of them. And I think that's really important. But for simple stuff like creating interfaces, creating buckets, they can do it. But what's the next step? How can I make it? How can I innovate using these tools? Because I think what people don't understand is these AI tools don't think, don't reason. Even if they call them reasoning models, they're actually a probability machines, and we can make them better and better. And but I think they will have a limit in predicting what innovation is. So I think humans are still the apex reasoners still. So we need to reason and we need to innovate and use all of these tools.
You think that's going to remain that way, like indefinitely, or are you hear the stories of what these guys are saying, right, in Silicon Valley, what they're building?
Yeah. So yeah, one interesting thing I saw was, can we achieve AGI, artificial general intelligence, with these tools? And surprisingly, a lot of the people in that space said yes. So I was surprised. I think it's not really it's gonna be better, but I think mimicking human intelligence with these ones, either we have to have a breakthrough in the hardware space, because we haven't had a lot of breakthrough since like 10-20 years ago, because we're using the same chips, we're like improving them every year exponentially, but they still have their limits. And if we want to make these models bigger and better, we still have the hardware constraints currently, and we have to hit a breakthrough there, or we have to create a new way of generating stuff. So we are using transformers and neural networks, and that's really great. It's kind of similar to how the human brain works, but the neurons are not big enough to compare to humans, and we don't have the training infrastructure to make these tools big. And I think the environmental impact, making this efficient, the training efficient, and making the models environment friendly, and other many issues still remain, and we can work on them. And because these tools are not perfect now, and we have to differentiate what's perfect and what's not, and programmers have to play a huge role in that.
What do you think the competitive advantage of a place like Addis Ababa is going to be globally going forward? So in global value chains, it's of course been cost competitiveness, right? Being just at a better price. Um, on the other hand, you mentioned using global technology that was invented somewhere else, and adapting it to the local market, getting, the inside knowledge that people don't have. Whoever built Uber or Bolt, the other Bolt, Taxify, um, doesn't know what needs to be specific for the Ethiopian market, not to mention, any other tools that we could use in rural Ethiopia. Those two aspects, like what are you guys going to compete in going forward on global markets that you can do better than Indians or people from Ukraine or people from America or Germany? And how do you see that compared to adopting and adapting things that are built elsewhere that you can, repurpose for local problems?
Yeah. Uh, One thing is, I think the local market really lacks the technology transformation that it needs, and there is a huge market there, and we can bring out here. But to compete with the international market as well, I think the like still the manpower is really a competitive advantage we have. We really have a lot of skilled software developers, QA engineers, designers, and some of them are working on their own and trying to create novel ideas as startups. But we can also provide these services to international markets. And I think our cost of living and the advantage of living in a low cost country really helps us undercut the market that's global, but we can also give quality that's comparable to the other markets. So we just need a chance to prove that. And having a local market that's really booming and that's developed and have really skilled people and startups that come out of this country on the international stage will help bring markets into the country as well, and we can export our services and earn that highly needed foreign currency. So I think focusing on the local market, especially growing the talent, because there is a uh, huge untapped talent here, and we can maybe show that to the foreign market, to the international market, and people will be like running into us like the gold rush again, because I think AI is creating a second gold rush for software as well.
Nice. Sam, I'm mindful of your time. We're at the time that I'd asked you to spend with me. I have a few more questions, but I just really, maybe one more if you don't mind.
No, I
If,
think it's fine. We can extend it a bit if you don't mind, Abel.
yeah, oh yeah, I could talk to you all day. I mean, I'm I wanted this podcast to be 3 hours long, but I guess Yoss doesn't agree.
Yeah,
Uh,
you remind us.
so um, if people are working with no code platforms, let me go back to that part. They say I hold a workshop and people are figuring out how to do things, how to solve problems, and they're getting a taste of what they could actually build, being people who hitherto considered themselves as non-technical. Would you be interested in hearing from people like that? Like, would you be interested in if somebody comes up to Mereb and says, knocks on the door and says, "Hey, listen, I'm not a developer, but I've got these ideas, and Sam Altman recently wrote a piece saying the idea people that the techies used to make fun of, that people come to Silicon Valley, they can't build anything, but they've got an idea, and then now they're looking for people who can make it happen, right?" He predicted that those people are actually going to be, uh, you know, end up being benefited most by this change in technology. You're clearly saying they're still going to need help. They're still going to need either you're saying they should try to figure it out themselves, but not everybody is everybody is different, right? Some people are more on the humanities sides of things. Are you foreseeing collaborations with people like that, where you could have actually a room of developers and half of them aren't actually developers in the classical sense, but they're more idea people?
Yeah. The great thing is now the idea people can test their execution and how they can maybe prototype it and show it to friends and can see if it works or not. And they don't need to nag anyone else. So yeah, because the main problem is I think ideas come to a lot of people, but either they have a barrier with people they know, or they are not able to implement it themselves. And maybe they don't have the money to hire people and try it. Because, yeah, previously, if I had an idea and I believed in the idea, what I do is I take a loan or try to get money funding from somewhere and hire people who work on it. Because, yeah, software developers are mercenaries. They don't really develop their own ideas. So, and people do it that way. And some also go the extreme route and learn to program as they are building those ideas. And I think there are huge examples of people doing that and being successful. But now it has really decreased the barrier to entry. So anyone who has an idea can go to Level AI or go to Will Cursor and try to build it, vibe code it, and maybe deploy it somewhere as well. Now, I think from like releasing to people is also much easier now than it was a few years ago, because a lot of uh, like cloud services or no server services are there, no server databases are there, and these generative AI tools can help you as well to integrate with these platforms, and you can go to launch really quickly. You just need to make sure you can do it, you can execute it. So the the barrier to entry has decreased for this kind of passionate people, non-developers who can try out their ideas without begging for help from some other people. So it really reduced the cost, and I think they will see the value in it, and maybe they don't like the idea or people are not receptive, and they can now consult other people who have experience on it, who have developed platforms or tools like that, and they can learn or they can do research by themselves, and that has gotten easier as well. The you can because you don't need to ask it for solving it. You can ask the generative AI to tell you, where can I search, where can I find this kind of, and most of the time it will point you to the right direction. And I think in each step, any non-technical person or a non-programmer can just consult these software tools, these generative AI tools, and make sure they can go the extra step and the extra mile until they're successful. So if people continue trying out and living out their ideas, they can be really successful. And then with the issues with scale, with people, and with adding features, they can add more people and create more markets. So I think it's all a positive for me. I don't see a negative to it.
So the 20 people you're hiring, what kinds of people, if anyone is listening, do you have them already, or are you asking for resumes, or?
So yeah, we do have a huge talent pool of, I think, 1,000+ people, which we curated on our platform that we built, and has some AI features as well for coding challenges as well as interviews. We do use AI interview tools to filter them, and we call them and do talk to us again. So especially for software developers, for programmers, uh, we have a huge talent pool that we speak with people and try to onboard. But for like customer service people, especially for French, German, Italian speaking customer service developers, they're really specialized needs, especially for Ethiopia, which is, it's not even an English speaking country, but yeah, you can find a lot of English people, customer service people, but for French, Italian, and German, it's really a niche market. And we're still looking for people that are bilingual, I guess trilingual, to speak additional European languages as well, to help with customer support, technical support, and stuff like that. So we're still looking.
Right. Last question. Where is the best place in Addis to eat injera? I'm coming in September, and injera is my favorite food in the world.
Yeah.
Where's the best place besides your home?
I was just gonna say, yeah, a homemade injera is much better.
Is better.
Yeah, but I think everywhere, especially here, there are a lot of restaurants. I'm just looking at one through my window now, just next to our office. So I think, yeah, injera, because injera is ubiquitous in Addis Ababa. Everyone eats injera every day for all the meals, including lunch and dinner. So you can't go wrong with picking a restaurant. But maybe you'd want a traditional cuisine that's meat heavy and has some injera. There are restaurants here, I think. Uh, we have I think a restaurant called Heber, which is right next to our office, and they have a huge selection of traditional. And if you like pizza as well, they make great pizza. But yeah, their traditional combo is nice. They call it the traditional combo, and it's really nice. So if you uh, come to our office and we can walk just it's across the street and try to eat there. It's really
You're
nice.
on.
Has a nice view as well. So really nice restaurant.
Yeah, you're on. Besides, I'm never coming to Ethiopia to eat pizza. Um,
Yeah,
that's
shouldn't.
the
Definitely not.
Not, I mean, there's nothing against Ethiopian pizza, but there's the competition is too good.
Exactly.
So yeah, I really look forward to coming by and to seeing this new ecosystem now after 6 years. So to see how it has developed and to visit you guys. What is the name of your podcast? I always look and admire the setup, the studio setup. What is it called? Because I can't understand it yet. I don't know if you guys are planning on having work with 11 Labs to have some kind of build something that it can instant translate to other languages.
I think yeah, that might be the next step. The podcast is called Mereb Podcast, so the same as
Okay.
the company name. And yeah, we're I think yeah, it's on YouTube. And maybe what I was thinking is we can maybe do automatic subtitle translations, and people might read the subtitles, and the technology is available and really cheap now. And we've
Yeah.
been talking about it with Yared and Nabiyu as well. I think that could be a really because the people that come here and talk and share their expertise have been like domain experts in their fields, in the businesses for longer than we've been alive sometimes. And that's really a good insight to companies that intend to work with African partners in African countries. It could be a really a really nice insight.
Yeah. I always bring this example. So Satya Nadella and Sundar Pichai, they grew up in India.
Yeah.
Um, and to see what's going to happen in Addis in the next 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, who's going to come through that ecosystem, it's just going to be, I'm going to be very privy to just, be a fly on the wall and watch what happens in this space. So I'm, yeah, really looking forward to coming down.
Really looking forward to having you.
Great. Thank you, Sam, for being here, for coming on.
Thank you so much. It was a blast.
Great. Thank you.